Welcome to the Ketogeek podcast. Let's do this.
Health, nutrition, fitness, low-carb lifestyle.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the Ketogeek podcast. My name is Fahad, and I am once again joined by the great
Corey, the alchemist.
That took some time.
I was expecting you to introduce me there.
Oh, I should put some drum rolls in there as a filler just in case. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great time here in Napa, California, and we are enjoying the beautiful springtime. Well, you know, one of my friends recently said that across the country, they still have snow going on. What kind of madness is that?
It's clearly an indicator that climate change is all right, I suppose.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's just cold over there. It reminds me of the time when I used to be in Indiana at one point, and our snow period would extend way sometimes into February. It was really, really cold. Anyway, not going too sidetracked too far on this show. Corey, who is Ketogeek?
Oh, Ketogeek is an awesome company that puts out food products, but we have some other stuff going on. We have an educational component to it. Check out the podcast. We make YouTube videos that take big concepts and turn them into small bite-sized chunks to enjoy. We make the energy pods. The energy pods are some of the best foods on this planet, and I think you can tell us all about that, Fahad.
Well, I will put it very simply. Imagine the tastiest and healthiest snack or meal replacement ever conceived by humanity, and that's what we call energy pods. We say that really boldly, and the reason is because every single ingredient that we put into energy pods, we have researched it. From MCT oil, to ghee, to erythritol, to monk fruit, we know the science behind every single thing that we've put in there. We consume these energy pods ourselves. These are these tiny 2-ounce cups that are completely shelf stable. But you know what's cool about it, Corey?
What's that?
You can put them in the refrigerator and they will taste amazing. Imagine a high-end quality craft chocolate that you can get from these artisan quality sellers or manufacturers. That is the level of quality and taste we're talking about when it comes to energy pods, except it's not a chocolate bar. It is semi-solid at room temperature. Then it turns into sort of like a pudding texture, creamy, rich texture when refrigerated, and it turns into an ice cream when it is frozen. Energy pods just are amazing. And we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. If you've been an old customer and haven't tried them yet, the new version from post-2021 is off the charts. So, Corey, anything else regarding the energy pods?
The best way to put the energy pods is that it's the marriage of cutting-edge science, nutrition, and food science. I should actually correct myself there. And gourmet food. Just smash into it. Think of your favorite Michelin-starred restaurant and imagine that inside a pod. Go home and eat it. Enjoy life.
And that's true because a lot of winemakers and chefs here in Napa, California, which is the hub, the food and wine hub of the world. People here, like these people, have tested our energy pods and given it a solid thumbs up. David Grega, who's been on our podcast, he's a world-class winemaker. He's tried the energy pods, paired it with a Pinot that he makes, and he has given us a thumbs up. And this is the story that's coming again and again. What we're talking about is something revolutionary, more like evolutionary, or revolutionary, you want to say it. It's just how the first chocolate bar or candy bar came into being. Energy pods are literally at the same level. The best part is they're healthy. You can take them guilt-free, and we're going to uncover more of the science of the energy pods as we prolong our shows and come up with new episodes. Our product is always evolving. It comes with a paperboard spoon, so you can just consume energy pods wherever you want. And since they're shelf-stable, you can take them anywhere you want. People have been taking them to all sorts of adventures. And this is a perfect segue into who our guest is. But before we get into our guest, I would like to point out that you can buy our energy pods at www.ketogeek.com and just go there, order it right now. Just go there, do that. Just try them out. They're like $9.95 for one of them, and then if you get a box of them, they're like $69.95. And so they're all handmade and hand packed. They're a very unique product. You're gonna love them. They'll arrive to you within about 2 to 3 days. Worst case scenario, if you're on the East Coast, since we're in West Coast, it's gonna take about 3 days. They will be your replacement for a lot of different food products.
Yeah, one of the best people ask me like, "Oh, how do you use the energy pods?" And I like to say it's like a strategic nutrition nuke. I think that's okay to say. They take away, or they actually give back, the time that you would have otherwise spent sourcing, prepping, cooking, and packing the food you would want to take on your adventures. That is kind of impractical for ultra busy people. And we tend to see these ultra busy people outsource their work, outsource. So we want to outsource your food prep to the energy pods.
And, you know, it's important to point out over here, considering how high inflation is these days and the prices are going up, and going to a restaurant, even driving, like the gas prices are going up now, and all of these things like fruits and vegetables and the produce aisle, all of it is becoming expensive, and it's becoming so confusing. All you need to now do is just grab an energy pod, bring it to your life, tag along some protein, like a lean protein, or energy pods in itself has a lot of protein in itself. So you can do that, and it will change your life. You will not go back to regular food products after this. So Corey, now that we have preached everybody about energy pods and their buying and all that kind of cool jazz, let's talk about our guest, because she was one of the people that you found through the Energy Pods Instagram account. How did that turn out? How did that go?
Yeah, I was just on Instagram looking for some folks that I just see living the best life they possibly can, and they're not letting anything get in the way of them chasing after their dreams, whether it be a full-time job, having children, being a mother to pets perhaps, or this and that. It could be anything, but I look for these people who are just destroying in life, and they're happy as can be because they are chasing those experiences. And Edie, our guest today, is out from Indiana. She's a mother. She is a tournament angler, so she is a bass hunter. Not a bass hunter like you bass heads out there, but a bass hunter. So she hunts for fish, and she was introduced to it pretty recently in her life, and just really took grip to it, found grounding in the waters, and now incorporates it fully in her life. Now she's out there inspiring other women, other men, other human beings to live their lives to the fullest. And I just loved what I saw on Edie's profile, the positivity, the no give up attitude, the can do anything attitude. Love it. And I want to find more of those people and just create a tribe of superhumans.
Yes, and it's very important. There are two things that really stood out about her that I think are really fascinating. One of them is that she's been through some dark places in life. She's come out real strong. Like as you guys will go through this podcast, you will see the chaos and the turmoil that she's been through. And the second thing is she is what I would call the embodiment of a modern woman lifestyle that's trying to do a lot. She's chasing her dreams. She's being passionate about something. And at the same time, she has a family. So she's balancing all of these acts together. And that, I think, is a code that we needed to crack on the Ketogeek podcast. And it's important to let everybody know on our show that energy pods, and we're starting to focus more towards application of our product. And then we also want to point out that a lot of our customers at Ketogeek are women. Just to be totally honest, it's like 80 to 90% of our sales are towards women. So I think it'll be really important to bring somebody who's doing a lot of these things, and perhaps other women who listen to our show, and guys to be more accommodating and understand where we're coming from and where she's coming from, so that we can create and evolve society further. So not only is it about being healthy in your life, in your diet, but also outside of what you do that matters. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Corey, for finding Edie. He gets full credit for that. Thank you for bringing her onto our show. And with that being said, let us have this interview with Edie.
as far as the angling part of it, did not start up until I'd say 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, I did some as a little girl with my brothers and my dad, but for the most part, I didn't really get into it that much until a few years ago. I worked with a gentleman that was really big into fishing, and he ended up asking me to be a partner in one of his tournaments. He needed a partner, so I said yes. Long story short, it was a crazy day. We ended up winning that tournament, and that was it for me. I was hooked.
Okay. So
I've been chasing them ever since.
So curious, just to go even further back into your life, when was the first time you picked up a fishing rod?
Oh gosh, I'd say I was probably 5, 6 years old. First time I picked one up. I don't have a lot of memories of fishing, but I do have some, and that was probably the age that I would have first held a fishing pole.
And what about your parents? Were they into this lifestyle as well? I know you mentioned your siblings were.
Well, they were not as much. I grew up in a small Amish community, actually. So, I mean, all of my brothers and my dad, of course, were big into hunting and fishing, because that's how we provided the food for the most part. That, and we had our own garden and stuff. Pretty much self-sufficient. But as far as the girls in the family, and I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters, so a very large family, just a side note. But I grew up outdoors pretty much because I always loved being outdoors. But as far as the hunting and fishing part, we didn't get into that as much.
Okay. And so you started taking this to a whole new level just a few years ago, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So when somebody talks about fishing, like I am somebody, if you throw into the water, I will drown. That is 100% certainty. So for a dummy like myself, if I were to say, hey, I want to start fishing, what do I do? I mean, probably learning how to swim would be a good starting point, but what else?
Yes. Knowing how to swim is probably pretty important if you're going to be around water a lot. But anyway, and another side note here, I didn't learn how to swim until I was 25 years old. So, so I'm not a very strong swimmer myself, but I can. It was after I had my kids, I realized I needed to learn, if I needed to save them or something. So anyway, I would say first you need a fishing pole, a hook, some line, and then some kind of lure, whether it's live bait or I don't fish with live bait myself, so either an artificial lure or live bait. That's pretty much the basics of what you need. It's really sort of that simple. You don't have to have all kinds of fancy things or know a whole bunch of stuff. It's as simple as those couple items.
Okay. And what kind of, where would one normally go for fishing? Like in your locale, is there like a resource that you use that people can use as well? Or is there a book that you would recommend, or just Google it up, or just do trial and error?
There's different apps. There's one is called Fishbrain. I know I use that some. Google Maps is an excellent resource. And then as far as, I would probably say like the state DNR website is a really good one for public accesses and things like that. They're an excellent source of information for as far as like the legal part of it. You have, fishing license. You have to have a fishing license. But yes, as far as public accesses and places, that are okay to fish and things like that, I know most state DNR websites have most of that information.
Gotcha. And so when you go out to do fishing, what's a day like for you? What's your routine on a day when you're out and about?
Say like a tournament day.
Let's talk about a normal day, and then let's talk about a tournament day.
The preps. Okay. Well, a normal day, I start the day usually around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to be at work. My hours are technically 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I leave the house around 5:30 normally, sometimes earlier. And my day can last anywhere from 2 p.m. to sometimes up to 5. So it depends on what's going on that specific day. I am in purchasing for a local RV manufacturer, actually. So it is, it's definitely a controlled chaos. Well, sometimes controlled, sometimes not so controlled, but it is chaos all day, every day. But I love my job. I love the people I work with. After work, I will, if it's not sub-zero to where I can still feel my toes, I will usually stop somewhere and wet a line for a bit, or, go fishing for a little bit. And I do that a lot just to disconnect from work, I think, for the most part, before coming home. And plus practice, and things like that. And during the winter, it's definitely a struggle for me because I love being outdoors. And when it's this cold, it's tough to do that. Come home, my kids usually get home from school around 4:10, and we cook dinner and hang out, sometimes play games, and then we do it all over again. So
all right.
It's definitely, and you mix any appointments in there with it, and it's definitely a busy day from start to finish.
So curious in there, you mentioned that you do line fishing in the middle of the day, correct?
You mean go fishing? Well, like after I get off of work. Yeah.
So you'll spend a couple of hours doing that, or an hour.
Yes. Sometimes a couple of hours, sometimes an hour, sometimes I will do it until dinner time, or it depends. I mean, during the winter, it's usually just an hour or two because it's very cold here. Very cold.
Okay, so interesting question. Do you listen to music, or do you listen to a podcast or a book while you're on a casual day, or do you just like to listen to the surroundings?
I listen to music for the most part. Music has always been a calming thing for me. I think it's gotten me through a lot, and I always swear that fish like it too. But that's just me in my opinion. But normally I will be listening to music and a lot of times singing along if there's nobody around.
What kind of music? What kind of music do you go for? Is it like death metal or dubsteps or classic or hip hop? I don't know. Oh, I have a very eclectic collection. I have pretty much any playlist that you can imagine as far as genres go. It depends on the day and the mood, and yeah. But I listen to pretty much anything. All right, sounds good. That sounds like myself as well. I have a 300 song liked from radio list on Spotify, and it just is all over the place. There's no sense whatsoever to that list. So let's talk about the competitive day. Like, what happens during those days? Ooh, I love competition days. And those will start the day before. I mean, sometimes even week in advance or whatever, the preparation of it. One is, studying the water that I'll be fishing. And with like my national tournaments, I can usually pick the waters that I'll be fishing as long as they are public waters. But as far as local in-person tournaments, it's an assigned spot. So either way, I will research or practice if I can. The night before, I will rig up all the poles, put all the fresh line, make sure everything's good to go with that and the lures on that I want, and have everything ready to go in the morning so that in the morning I can grab my coffee. I'll stop at the gas station, get water, and
a snack or something, because 8 hours on the water is a long day. But there's nothing like competition morning, like a tournament morning. I mean, you get out on the water, it's cold, there's fog over the water, it's still a little dark, and you have this like intense butterflies, nervous excitement in your stomach, and there's just nothing like it. Like you're just ready to go after it and get it done.
So in a competition, is it something like a 1v1 sort of style, or 1v everybody styles, or is it team based, as in you're a team of 2 or 3 people, or I don't know, 10?
The local in-person bass boat competitions that I do as a team with my boyfriend. We fish together for those. The kayak competitions that I do, it's on my own. Now actually all of the kayak competitions that I've done so far have been like online ones. I have not found a local in-person one, but I plan on doing more of that this season. And for sure, I'm already planning for next year as well, as far as more series-based competition.
So when you're talking about team-based, what is that like? Do you have set roles in there, or does everybody do the same thing, or like how does teamwork work?
Well, if I have a partner, it's 2. It's 2 people per boat, and like each boat is like that's your team. It's each boat against each other, but you both just. It's just teamwork on it. I mean, normally, like, I will try not to fish the same thing as my partner is, as far as like lures and method goes, until, unless it's, we found that that's what works and that's what's getting them at that time. And then I might switch to that. But otherwise, like, until we find the fish or a pattern or whatever, we will fish different things for the most part, just to try and figure it out faster. If that makes sense.
Sounds great. No, I am just a curious bird. I might not do something, but I like to learn about it and explore it and seek some wisdom out of it. So when you're talking about the solo competitions, do you prefer solo, or do you like teamwork more? Or they just got their own thrill with it?
I think they have their own thrill with it, honestly. I probably, if I was to choose, if it was ultimate one or the other, honestly, I would probably go solo, because I'm hungry to figure it out on my own. If that makes sense. Like I wanna figure it out, and put the puzzle together piece by piece, but all on my own. And the team ones that I do, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that as well. But it's, if I had to choose one or the other, I would probably say the solo.
Gotcha. So what, do your siblings still fish as well? Or are you like now the queen among the rest of them?
I believe a couple of them, I believe they do, as very rarely though. I think they do on occasion fun fishing and things like that, but I don't believe that any of them is really into it, like, as much as I am. Well, I can pretty much guarantee that because I'm pretty crazy about it, so.
How crazy are you in the sense that do you go on forums and just talk about it with other people, or do you like to just segregate away, like, okay, this is family time and this is just fishing time, me geeking out, or they just start overlapping each other from time to time?
I do both. I'm always trying to learn. Like, here a couple weeks ago, I had the most amazing opportunity and experience. I got to travel to Florida to fish the Bassmaster Open Series on the Kissimmee chain. And it was just the most amazing experience. I mean, I got to fish with some of the best in the world, and I got to learn from these people, and watch and see. And it's just phenomenal to me that I had the opportunity, and I got to experience that, and I got to bring so much knowledge and advice, back with me from that. And it's always, I have a subscription to the Bass University. I watch videos. I'm always trying to learn, but I also like to go out on my own and also, get a read in a sense and figure some things out. And, maybe, I have some of my own things that I do as well that I've learned on my own. It's a mixture of both.
So what is something that you did learn during this competition that you just mentioned? You can get as technical as you want. I might sound like a dummy, but there might be smarter people than me around.
Okay, no, there's actually two specific things that I came away with. One is what's called a Carolina rig. I believe every person that I had the honor to fish with while I was there either used it or had one rigged up on the boat. And a Carolina rig is where you have a weight about a couple feet or so ahead of where your hook and your lure are. And so the weight drags on the bottom and the bait floats above the bottom just a little bit. And it just really intrigued me. And I'd never seen it used. I've never used it. I didn't know how to rig it. And so, I was asking questions and I learned all I could about it. And I'm planning on utilizing that and adding that to my, toolbox of tricks or whatever. And then the second was a swim jig, fishing a swim jig in lily pads or thick weeds or matted places or whatever, to where I didn't think that you could really fish a jig. But a swim jig is different than the flipping jig that I'm used to using. So that was another thing that I learned that I'm excited to also utilize. So.
Okay, I'm gonna press you a little bit on there because, like I said, I'm a complete dummy here. So what do you mean by the, jig? What does that mean?
By the jig?
Yep.
The jig is it's a type of lure, I guess you call it. I don't even know how to explain it really. I mean, it's got a weighted head and a hook, but then it's got like a skirt on it. And it can have different color skirts or whatever, and then you can put like a plastic trailer on it. I don't know, how much of the of that what I'm talking about or not, but that's sort of how, and you can fish it many different ways. Like it can be fished along the bottom, it can be, used as a reaction bait or a stationary bait. It's very versatile, but there's also different kinds, and the kind that I've been used to using or whatever is mostly like a flipping type jig or a rock head jig. And what the new one that that I learned or whatever while I was there is called a swim jig. It's got a different shaped head, and it's got a different shaped head, and it moves differently through the water. I don't know how to explain it really, but it moves with the hook up on its back.
Gotcha.
So you can drag it across things without, So.
No, that's fantastic. I'm probably going to end up Googling all of this stuff up anyway, eventually down the road.
That's
probably
okay.
Next morning.
At one point or another, I have probably Googled everything there is. So.
Hey, I'm totally open to people calling me an ignoramus buffoon if they want to, which is pretty true on this topic. So, no, but this is really fascinating at the same time because it's an area of knowledge and lifestyle that I really don't know about. The closest I can relate to is when I met a customer of mine through my other business, and he used to do, I think, fly fishing or something of that sort, and he showed me some of the gear that he used to make and all that kind of jazz. So that was a whole different area of expertise, I would say. So in the next year or a couple of years, where do you see yourself?
I want to be doing this full time, honestly.
Really?
I want at And I don't know if I see that like in the next year or 2 years, but my end goal is to travel the country, fishing tournaments and doing like maybe motivational speaking or workshops for women and kids, to encourage them to chase their dreams and their goals, and help them realize, what they're capable of and their own work. That's the end goal.
No, that's
and I know they're lofty and big, but that's what I'm chasing.
no, we need that. No, we really need that, and I think that this is coming from somebody like I was raised in a country called Pakistan, and I spent 18 years over there, and my mother was a complete rock star in that regards. Like, she got a master's in physics, and she would take care of the kids. She would take them to their school, and then she would use public transport to go to her workplace. She would teach a lot of other women, and then she would come home, make food. So she was juggling and wearing a lot of different hats as well. And I think and that's one of the visions that we had with our product as well when we started Ketogeek, was to empower people to save more time, give them options and freedom to do what they want to do. That was a huge point for me, because even for me, when I started making those products, I was working 12, 16 hours per day at times, sometimes 5 to 6 times a week. And even at those times just becomes so important. And maybe I might not be able to relate with you, but you can probably value how important time is. And then even sometimes going half an hour to grab food, then coming back, like sitting down, then coming back, even that can take time. So those were some factors that I was thinking about when I first envisioned Ketogeek as a business. So no, this is very important for me as well. And which brings me to a very important question, that if you're a woman and you have kids as well, so what can you do, or how do you start branching out so you can focus on something more outdoors and just have something passionate in life? What can they do?
And it doesn't matter what the passion is, if whatever passion that they may have, as long as they're making steps towards that, whether it be outdoors, whether it be something else. But, outdoors to me, speaks of health and regeneration, refreshment. It can be as simple as, if you don't have time to cook dinner or whatever, grab fast food and take the kids, or sit at the park and eat it, or, whatever it is, just take them, for a walk around the block or whatever, just to get started in it. But there's also, local, like, opportunities and stuff. There's, kayak rental places where you can rent a kayak, which is like $20 a day, approximately, say on average or whatever. And you can spend a day, floating down the river, or, whether you're fishing or not, just, simple things like that don't have to cost a lot of money, or you don't have to do a lot of things about, just to enjoy them.
How do you start a conversation with your family about sort of changing your lifestyle, like evolving it, like you just said? How do you approach people that are close to you?
Well, I bug on my kids. I'm like, hey, we need to get our butts up and get outside. Get some fresh air. I don't care if it's right around the block or whatever it is, at least get outside and get some fresh air. Sometimes that's what it takes, is a little extra nudge or whatever, to get people to do that. You don't have to force them to enjoy what you enjoy or whatever, but just simply, just some fresh air, a little bit of exercise or whatever throughout the day, whether it's 10 minutes or a couple hours. Any bit of that is good. So.
Okay. For you, I think, because I think you mentioned that your boyfriend also does share a similar lifestyle, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you guys Did you guys have to talk about it beforehand about, hey, we want to start something really crazy and awesome at the same time? Or were you guys both into it and just connected that way? Like, how did that begin?
He was into it before I was or whatever. And I sort of fell into it, I guess, after trying it. But we never really had that connection or that conversation is what I meant to say. As far as like taking it to the next level or whatever, the way I am wanting to go, I don't know that is something he wants to do. He just wants to fish, and he's honestly, he's the best angler I know. But it's just something that, I mean, we've spent countless days together on the boat, and it's definitely been a good thing,
Okay.
as far as that goes as well.
If you were given $1 billion, what would you do?
Oh my gosh. I would help people.
Okay, that's too easy.
No, I would help people. I would start like a foundation or like locations throughout the country, or whatever, in places to make resources and opportunities available to women and kids for outdoor activities and things like that, as far as like workshops, like supplies or lessons, things like that.
Gotcha. Have you noticed the trend growing among younger women as well, like the pursuit of the outdoors? Or like, I understand like with the whole COVID thing, everything. Yeah, actually, that's a good question. Like, how did this COVID life sort of affect you guys?
Well, it was huge here, especially with the RV industry and everything. The schools all closed down, of course, and all of that. But no, it did sort of start, as you said, a trend, I guess. But which, I mean, I don't see it as a bad thing. I see some things that I don't know exactly where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
All good. Happens.
No.
But go ahead. Sorry.
No, what was the question?
Oh, I was just asking how, like, the COVID life, how did it impact your world of the outdoor lifestyle?
Well, I think that it enhanced it, honestly, like improved it from what it was before. Like we spent way more time outside during that downtime than we would have otherwise because we had the opportunity to do so.
Gotcha.
Like, time is always a factor when you work full-time jobs and have kids in school and, all of the necessities, it seems, day to day. And when that's all taken away and you have all this time, like to me, it was amazing. It was a lot of, negative things out of that as well. Don't get me wrong. But the times, the quality time spent together, that was definitely a positive out of that. Okay.
So just to revert back a little bit to your fishing life, I was curious, how far back do you have to plan for a certain event, and how long do these events take place? Is it like a weekend thing, 3-day thing, or is it a week-long thing? So 2 questions there.
Okay. It depends on what the event is. Most of the ones that I do are just like the local in-person ones, the Bass Pro, are just 1-day events for the most part. Now, the kayak ones can be anywhere from 1 day but most of them are at least a weekend. Some of them run a few weeks. Some of them run a month at a time. But there's always a lot of planning that, like, as far as the water study is probably the part that takes the longest. And I will do that for weeks ahead of time. I'll start looking at Google Maps and like studying the area, seeing where I want to fish, like the certain spots that I can get to. Because some spots I might not be able to get to or whatever. And the fastest way to get to those spots with the kayak, since it's, but yeah, I would say, up to weeks in advance for sure.
So in a competition, is it? No, here's a really dumb question. I should know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. So, in a competition, is it something like who catches the most fish is the winner? Is that how it is, or am I missing something here?
No, like in the in-person ones, the bass boat ones that I do, it's whoever has the most weight. Like five fish.
Really interesting.
Everybody can have 5 fish. Yep, and whoever has the 5 fish that weigh the most is the winner. Now in the bass or in the kayak competitions, it's length. We measure them and submit the length of them. So it's whoever has the most length of fish. So in a kayak, you're hoping you don't care if they're skinny as long as they're long. And then in the bass boat, you don't care if they're short as long as they're chunky. So.
Oh man, I feel like a dummy.
There's always. Oh, it's okay. No, it's okay. But there's always a minimum limit. Like sometimes it's 12-inch, sometimes it's 14-inch. And it depends. So.
See, but now it makes sense when you have all those pictures showing the entire fish holding it like that. Sort of. It's like, oh, I now know what you're doing. It's not like you're holding 50 fish in your hands and saying, I won. It's more like, look at the quality of fish I'm holding.
No. And let me tell you, it's hard to hold 5 fish at once.
What's the maximum a human being can hold? 2?
Oh, no, I've held 5, but it's difficult. And I usually, they'll flop out of my hands or something if I try to do that. So, I mean, comfortably 2. So. All
right. Things you learn out of, talking to new people. Right. It's crazy. So
isn't it cool though?
No, it's really interesting. It's really fantastic. I'm so glad you came over here to have a conversation. When Corey and I were having a chat earlier, we were really happy and excited to have you on there, especially the fact that you're juggling so many things in life together. And my goal with having you on board was to inspire a lot of people, especially women, to potentially reach out to you or adopt lifestyles and just go out there and seek adventure and try new things in life. I think that's very important for us to sort of project out there. But
start saying yes.
Yeah.
That's that's what I think. That's where. Well, I know that's where things started changing for me. Is after losing my husband and everything, was when I started living again. Was when I started saying yes.
Would it be too personal for me to pry you on that topic on what happened?
With what? I'm sorry.
Your husband, you mentioned.
Oh, my husband passed away in 2016. He had cancer, and we were married for 28 days before he passed away of cancer. So.
Oh, that's tragic. I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And it's I've come a long way since then. The first couple of years after that were honestly, a lot of it is foggy to me. It was definitely the darkest time in my life. But fishing, and that's why I say like fishing, riding my motorcycle, things like that, as music, as well as my, along with my kids and the support group that I have and stuff, absolutely saved my life. And it was when I started saying yes again, to things, to opportunities that came my way and stuff, that life, that I was able to start living life again.
No, I'm really
instead of existing.
No, this is fantastic, and I genuinely feel like I'm kind of happy for you in that regards, that you've overcome something as potent as that, and I really wish that other people, when they listen to this and they reach out to you, they get to breathe and live life to their maximum potential, or to the best that they can do. And I can somewhat relate to it. I remember when I started my whole business life, I was in a very dark place myself. So for me, business was a therapeutic thing, and lifting heavy weights and putting them down. So it's very important. I guess this is something we both could agree that people need to have some anchors in life. And yes, saying yes is a good thing. It's easy to lock ourselves up and let emotions and all these dark thoughts just take over the mind. But it takes courage sometimes and a lot from us to break through these walls and just do something. Just doing something.
To process. You have to process, and you have to process things to heal from them. And as much as that sucks and as hard as that is, it's when we find the strength to walk through that, to be able to process and to heal and to, desire healing in life enough to spend that time on ourselves and to allow ourselves to heal from things, so that we're able to move on because we deserve that. And everybody is worth that. And it's, that's what I hope to get out of any and all of this is, that people get that message that they are worth that. You're worth the effort. You're worth the difficult, the fight, the battles, whatever. It's, you're worth it. And it's definitely worth chasing. And making a priority.
So this brings me to a very interesting question. What do you think are some challenges that modern women these days, perhaps with the family or without the family, it depends on wherever you want to take this, like what kind of challenges do they face?
I would probably say just self-confidence, belief in themselves, and it's stigmas, just things that you've been told or heard or taken as normal, for so many years or whatever, and it's not the truth. Like, you are capable, you are, you are worthy, you are absolutely strong enough to accomplish anything that you want to accomplish. As long as you believe in yourself and have that confidence and passion, and allow yourself to put yourself out there to.
You mentioned something called...
achieve it.
Yeah.
It's
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's difficult for me to put into words what I'm thinking.
All good. No problem. You mentioned something. By the way, you're welcome to interrupt me anytime and continue your train of thought if it comes back to you or you have better words to express it. I'm more than happy to cut back to whatever you want to say. But you mentioned earlier about bike riding?
Motorcycle.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. How did you get into that?
Yes. I got into that with my late husband. He was into motorcycles. He rode since he was little. And so that's how I got started on it. But I always rode him until when he passed away, I decided I wanted to get my own. I didn't want to stop that because that was a sense of freedom and peace for me. And so I took a class and got my own endorsement for it, and I have my own motorcycle, and I've been riding on my own pretty much ever since.
Do you like to do long trips on the bike? I know one of my customers, he's an investigative officer of some sort. I don't remember. But he was a really cool guy. He used to do drug busts, crazy stories. But yeah, he I've met some interesting people. But what's interesting was that he had a really awesome canine dog of some sort, and then besides that, he used to have a couple of bikes and go on these really, really long drives and trips for sometimes across the country. And it was different from what you would call a traditional motorbike, I would say. Like, once again, my ignorance shows. But he would go across the entire United States. Sometimes he had a big map in his garage where he would put these pins and lines.
Where he'd been.
Yeah, where he'd been. And he had been all the way to Florida Keys from California. Somehow he managed to do that. So is that something?
That's pretty cool.
Is that something you do? Like, are your excursions long term, or do you just go out for a day and just enjoy the wind?
I haven't ever taken that long of a trip. The most I've done personally is a few hours. But I want to. I want to do a cross-country trip sometime. It definitely is something on my bucket list. There's a lot of places or spots that I want to ride. So,
where would you go if you were unbound by the shackles of anything? Where would you travel first thing right now?
To the island of Kauai.
Why is that?
I spent some time on that island a few years ago for one of my friends' weddings. I was a bridesmaid, and it was just my favorite place on earth. It was, I would love to be able to ride my motorcycle on the island of Kauai.
Island of Kauai, where is that? Once again, showing my ignorance here.
It's okay. It's part of Hawaii.
Ah, okay.
It's one of the Hawaiian islands. I believe it's the smallest of them. Maybe it's the furthest west. I know that it's like the most western part you can be and still be in the United States.
What's the population there? Like 40 people?
No, it's more than that. But honestly, I don't know that answer.
Okay.
But I believe it's like 30 miles across, though. Like the entire island, I think is like 30 miles across. But it's got like they call it the Grand Canyon of the West. It's like you can't describe it unless you see it in person. I mean, you can look at pictures and stuff, but like you can stand on the edge of the canyon and you can look one way and see the canyon and turn around, look the other way and see the ocean. And it's pretty phenomenal.
I'm looking it up as you're speaking.
Yes, it's just the most beautiful place that I have ever experienced.
Holy moly, Google doesn't want me to get the easy answer out. There you go. Kauai. Oh, that looks gorgeous. Wow. Holy moly.
They call it the Garden Island or the Healing Island. Those are both names for it, and both of them fit very well. It's
So those who are just listening over here, if you just Google it up, or if you don't Google up, it's really gorgeous in the sense that it has these tall, ridgy mountains on it, and the water is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, and
it's just green everywhere, and it's like you'll have the best hair days of your life, like when you're on the island, and your skin it's amazing. Just put it that way. Best seafood too.
What seafood do you like over there? Like, what's the common food that is enjoyable?
The sushi, the mahi. It's just amazing. Like, it will spoil you for life for seafood anywhere else.
You're probably the expert among when it comes to fish. Between the two of us, by the way, so I'll trust your judgment on that.
Not for eating fish. For fishing fish, yes. Eating fish, not.
Really?
Not so much. Not as far as expert goes. I'm definitely not an expert on eating fish.
Okay. Do you guys normally, whenever you do fishing, another dumb question, do you guys eat what you catch, or do you guys just let it go?
No. I have never kept any myself. It's always catch and release. But I'm not that I'm against it or whatever, like if for food, because I mean my partner caught some bluegill this winter that we cooked up and stuff, but it's just for myself. All of mine are catch and release.
Gotcha.
You know what, I do take that back. Back in 2015, I went on a charter for salmon fishing on Lake Michigan, and they filleted the salmon when we got back, and I got to take it home and put it on the grill, and so I take that back. That was the one time I did not catch and release.
How was the experience like? How did you feel? Was it like, wow, I did this? Or what was it like?
It was honestly, it was pretty cool, like to be, from catching the fish all the way to putting it on the grill and cooking it and eating it. That was a pretty cool experience.
Do you guys just season it up, or actually, that's a very interesting question. How does an angler cook fish? Yeah, answer me that.
Well, this is the one way I always tell everybody because I don't have much experience in it. But we cedar planked it, or whatever. We soaked some cedar planks in a bucket of water, like for a day or two, and then you put them on the grill and put the fish, some kind of marinade or whatever, put the fish on top of there, but then it just like steams it through the cedar planks, and it's pretty good.
Is that your favorite way to eat fish, or do you have something else?
I'd say that was probably my favorite home cooked way. Yes.
Okay, sounds fantastic. Oh man, what is?
Again, I'm not a big cook or chef or expert on that, but.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. What does your family think about all of this? Like now that and your relatives, like what do they think about your lifestyle?
A lot of times fishing annoys my kids because well, and I shouldn't say that. It doesn't annoy them, but for the most part, they don't really have an interest in it that much. They, every once in a while they will. I'm not going to say they're, I shouldn't have said it annoys them, but I think more all of the time that it takes is probably what affects them the most is like how much time that it takes as far as like being on the water and stuff.
Okay. And what about your relatives? Do you think you're crazy, or do they like, wow, this is an amazing woman, or like what? What's it like at family gatherings?
Honestly, I don't really have much contact with my family because I left the Amish. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't have much contact with my family. Some of my siblings I do on occasion and stuff, and the ones I do speak to and stuff are definitely, they're supportive of it. But, I'm sorry.
all good. It's you're quite a sage, aren't you? Like, as in you've seen so much, like, because I had a very interesting religious background as well, so coming from that and then transforming and then all of these things, so in that way I can somewhat relate to you how ideological changes in how you think and having these weird whoa moments in life and then certain ridiculous lows and then isolation and then coming out of isolation. You develop an interestingly sometimes dark sense of humor, and at the same time, you find joy in certain things in life. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So some of the people who are listening to this podcast are probably nodding as well at the same time.
You value things that some people might look at as strange a little more than what most people do.
And, yep.
It's hard to explain, but yes.
Yes, and sometimes it allows you to step back and think about something and sort of question and be more curious than judgmental in many regards. It humbles you in certain ways. Yep. Oh, man.
Absolutely. And I believe ones who have gone through, things like that or whatever are much more open and receptive to everybody. It's like there's no judgment. Because I've seen and been through or experienced or known of or whatever pretty much some of the darkest, craziest things. And it's just there's no judgment because everybody deals with or is going through things the way that they best know how to. And yeah, it's just, just help each other, support each other in any way you can rather than judging.
Oh man, we could get into some existential talks. It would be amazing. What we can do is, if you ever do drop by in Napa, Corey and I would be happy to host you, and we can take you to wine tours and just have a good time over here. If you, your boyfriend, and your family just drops by, always come over here and say hello to us. Sometimes we have people who show up and are like, "Oh, Ketogeek, yeah, we'll hang out." We do that from time to time. So that would be fantastic. Would love to have you over. Just know that you have a friend now in Napa Valley, a couple of friends.
Thank you.
And I'll ask Corey.
I have not traveled a whole lot, but I'm definitely planning on doing more of that, and I would love that. Thank you for that.
Always. So we should start wrapping things up. We're getting close to about an hour or so. So just I know we talked about your competition. What was one of the most memorable experience that you had or have had, or turning point, or anything at all that you want to just share with the world?
Wow, there's
so many of them, aren't they?
There's a couple of them that come to mind. Yes, there are.
Let's go with a couple.
I would say, okay, I'll do two, and most of those are recent, and the first one is when I had the opportunity to fish the Bassmaster Open in Florida. And it's not even so much that, of what it was, but the fact that I allowed myself to say yes to that opportunity and to push through, like, no matter what came up. And instead of talking myself out of it, I just went and did it, and I let myself experience that and learn from it and grow from it, even though it didn't go the way that I wanted it to. It was just a huge turning point for me. It was the fact that I mean, come on, and anybody can chase their dreams and get there. And the second was when I got to film a show with Mr. Ronnie Green on A Fishing Story with Ronnie Green. That aired this past week, and I got to share my story. And I've always felt that I am meant to share my story because I feel it can help others. And I've never had the courage or allowed myself to do that publicly, and so those are two aha moments for me that I have, gotten to the point where I allowed myself to get to the point where I never thought I could until it happened. So that was sort of rambly, but yes, those two.
No, that's important. And and what you said over there, being a little exposing yourself to other people, I would imagine can be intimidating, but what I've found through podcasting, through the world of business, and just conversing with people, that a lot of times many people are waiting to be reached out to, just by the right way, if you know what I mean. Not just, in sort of an aggressive way, but just like a more humor-filled, a bit more humble way. And when you start doing that, when you see laughter sprout in someone's face or just a smile, you know that we're all human beings. And you start seeing the layers of humanity and experiences, lifestyle choices, all of those start to radiate out. And you have to be a little vulnerable yourself as well in that regards.
Yeah.
Because most people in their daily lives get burnt. They get so, in a defensive mode. But at the same time...
survival mode.
Exactly. But then you just start peeling the onion on the layer, and you start just seeing who they are, and then you realize, you know what? We have much to talk about. We have much to relate with. We're not that different, despite whatever we get to hear. That's one thing I've learned.
Underneath everything, we're all humans, and we all have souls and a heart, and we all just need to be loved and accepted, for who we are. And that's pretty much it right there. It's,
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll drink to that. And I think with that,
aside from that, it's all just a matter of, things and views and opinions and, different, but underneath it's all the same.
Indeed. And I think with these golden words, we can start wrapping the show up. Is there anything that I've missed out that you would like to share, or are we just burnt or just nuked the audience?
I think I'm good. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And I hope that it relates or touches someone, helps, inspires, whatever. That's my hope out of it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show. And once you get into once you delve more into the layers of your future, we will have you back and have a conversation. We can visit the topic again. You're always welcome to come aboard to our podcast in case you want to share something. You're part of the friends and family group, and we'd be happy to have you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the show. You can visit us at Ketogeek.com to check out our premium, keto-friendly, and low-carb food products, including our infamous energy pods, made from the best ingredients we could find in the entire country. We also recommend signing up for our newsletter at ketogeek.com/signup, where you get exclusive discounts, rewards, product announcements, and the latest content we are working on. You also get a 10% discount on your entire order when you sign up. Go to ketogeek.com/signup to join the low-carb playground.